There we go. Wonderful. So today's webinar is about off-campus housing presented by the Office of Off-Campus Student Services. And our presenters are Shreya and Marilyn, and I'm going to turn the virtual stage over to them. A reminder, the Q&A is open and we'll spend about an hour together.
Hi everyone. I'm Shreya Abraham. I work as the outreach coordinator for off-campus student services, and today I'll be joined with Marilyn, who will be talking to you about students living off campus. So this is just a bit about what our office does. We educate and support students who live off campus, and we do this by helping students make informed choices about housing and roommates. We also encourage students to become knowledgeable and responsible tenants. So we give webinars and we do programming on renters' rights and responsibilities. We assist students to solve problems when there are landlords and roommate difficulties. So we do this through talking to them, getting to understand what issues they're facing, and helping them solve the problems themselves. And also, one of the components that our office does is how to become an active member in the community. And we do this by instilling values of being a good neighbor. Now, for off-campus living, like we all have this question, like where should a student look for housing, like properties. So we recommend the students research the property and the management company before signing a lease. That's very important because we need to, like, students need to understand which area they're going to be living in and what kind of landlords or management company they need to be dealing with. So it's very important that students research this before signing the lease. So our like University of Pittsburgh has a collaboration with Rent College Pads. It's like a platform where we have a secure listing service for students, and the listing service has different components where there is apartment listing. There are also options for subleasing or reletting, and there is a thing called as roommates posting where you can post, like students can post about themselves if they're looking for roommates, or you can find roommates. There's also a feature called as furniture board listing service. So here students can exchange furniture, get old furniture, and this is all for University of Pittsburgh students. So it's considered to be a very secure listing site. And there's a landlord issue, like you can submit a landlord issue. So this is a very unique feature that Rent College Pads has because none of the other platforms have this. And we encourage students to use Rent College Pads to find apartments. And the only thing is that students need to have the Pitt email and login credentials when they try to access this website. There are also other sources where students can find listings. Some of the popular ones are like Zillow, there's apartments.com. There are also Facebook groups, but we ask students to be cautious because sometimes the listings, like the pictures that are shown on Facebook, might be incorrect and the actual place looks different. So be cautious when students look for apartments in Facebook groups. There are also ways to find out apartments, like either through word of mouth or through, like when students walk across neighborhoods, they can see these for rent signs. This is also a way to find apartments. There are some university leased apartments off campus, and there's also Pittsburgh Theological Seminary, which have few house listings. Now, the rental process. So, when a student has found an apartment, spoken to the landlord, the student has to fill a rental application process. Usually, some application process cost some amount. It ranges from $20 to $50. So you fill in all your details, give everything, and then you pay a small nominal amount, and then the landlord screens your application to decide if they are willing to rent the place to you. After that, once the landlord has screened the rental application, they'll send you a lease preview, and then you can read the lease and then decide on signing the lease. Um, the other thing is, when you read the lease, students might have to deposit a security deposit amount. That is a very small amount. So it typically ranges from a month rent to 1.5 month rent, but not more than that. We recommend that students submit like pay the security deposit only after signing the lease. Once the lease has been signed by both the student as well as the leasing agency, then only the student should have submitted the security deposit, and everything should be recorded like through email. And all communications we prefer that students having with the landlord should be through email. If there has been any conversations with the landlord on call, we ask students to record it on email after the call and get a confirmations from the landlord that this conversation had taken place. There are also some safety tips and red flags that we ask students to be careful of. For example, sometimes the landlord is reluctant to show the property in person, and they just show it through video calls. So we ask students to be aware of those kind of things. If a student is living abroad, then it is understandable, but then we recommend students who live like international students, we ask them to either get some contacts who are living in Pittsburgh who can go and check the property out. Other things are if the landlord does not respond in time, if you have questions and the landlord isn't answering them, if the landlord is trying to rushing the process, that also is a red flag. So we ask students to be very careful before signing the lease. How much ever, it's not like all the properties are going to go, and we're not on a strict time limit. So it's better that students take an informed decision. Now, Marilyn will be talking about the neighborhoods.
So the most Pitt students do choose to live in Oakland. It's the closest to campus, whether that be central, south, north, or west Oakland. And Pitt's central campus is in central Oakland. These apartments, you can usually walk to campus from these apartments. But there's tons of other neighborhoods around Pittsburgh. A lot of students choose to live in Shadyside, Squirrel Hill, Lawrenceville, Bloomfield. These are all a bus ride away. I would say generally, as you get a little bit further away from campus, the prices become a little bit more affordable. That's generally some neighborhoods will be more expensive than others. But as Pitt students, we have free bus access, so it's super easy to be in another neighborhood and then hop on the bus to get to class. So the lease, before signing a lease, you'll do a rental application. And before signing a lease, it's super important to read everything in the lease. Usually co-signers are required. And there's also an occupancy limit in the city of Pittsburgh. There's no more than three unrelated individuals in one unit. We do have someone in our office, Trish, who's the property manager liaison, who does lease review for students. And her contact information will be provided at the end of the presentation. But Trish, if you want to introduce yourself to
Hey,
everyone.
hello. Good afternoon, everyone. So happy that you were able to join us. I'm Trisha Margiotti. I'm the property management liaison, and I'm here to answer every question everyone has, to review leases. And I really like to talk. So if you need to reach out to anyone when your students start looking for off campus, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Trish has seen like every lease in Oakland, so she really knows her stuff. I would recommend. But yes, the next slide, Shreya. Leases and responsibilities. So, tenant responsibilities include paying rent. Sometimes there's late fees if you don't pay your rent on time. A lot of landlords I've been seeing more have been doing incentives for paying rent on time. So just read your lease and see what those are. Also responsible for utilities. In a lot of leases, they have the renters be responsible for lawn maintenance and snow removal. Also trash if you're renting from a unit, a building that has less than 6 units. It's through the city of Pittsburgh Trash and Recycling. If it's more than 6 units, it will be a private waste management company. Um, check your lease to see if the tenant is responsible for any repairs or anything like that. Also, if they have move out and cleaning requirements, a lot of leases will have specific move out cleaning instructions and then also the fees that they'll charge. So other helpful tips, check if a written notice to end your lease is required. Sometimes this could also just be an email. Just check your lease, just because that could be a bad situation. Um, Make note of any fees that are in the lease, like attorney's fees, things like that, any administrative fees, and then see what the fines and the costs would be. A lot of management companies will provide a move-in sheet to for the tenant to note any damages and things when they move in. And then if you don't turn that in, sometimes they'll take that as you accepting the residence as is, so you could be charged by damage caused by the previous tenant. Also make sure that all promises made by the landlord are in writing. For example, if you're touring an apartment and the landlord is like, oh, we're gonna have a new dishwasher before you move in, make sure you get that in writing before you sign the lease, because that way that's in the contract. Know if there's a way to get out of the lease, such as like early termination or subletting. If your student is thinking about studying abroad, that's something to take into account. Some landlords allow subletting, some do not. And then make sure that the landlord is required to give notice prior to entering a residence. Some landlord companies do a day before notice. Some do a 24 or 48 hours notice. I will say with a day before notice, it can be a bit tricky because the student can be getting a text at 5 p.m. saying, we're going to be showing your apartment at 9 a.m. the next day. 24 hours would be 24 hours strict. Renter's insurance. Definitely check the lease to see if renter's insurance is required. Some companies do require it, and if you do not purchase your own renter's insurance, you automatically enroll in their renter's insurance, which is usually more expensive per month than if you had just chosen your own plan. But buying renter's insurance is recommended because it protects personal property from things like fire, flooding, or theft. Also, yeah, check your renter's insurance contract before signing it as well, because it could give you a stipend for temporary housing and meals if your rental property needs repairs, things like that. It can also protect you for personal liability and claims or lawsuits. And then purchase a policy that includes protections for both your property and personal liability. So some things to do before the move. Make sure your lease payments are up to date. Set up utilities before moving in. This may look like making an account with the Duquesne Light Company. Also picking a Wi-Fi plan and getting that set up. Plan for parking. You can street park in Oakland, but that needs to be registered through the city. There's also parking garages around, or parking could be included. Plan to pick up the keys. Prepare for any move-in supplies. Yeah, you always need a hammer and a screwdriver. Um, uh, Before moving in, talk with your roommates about who's bringing what, all the sharing stuff. communicate what you plan to bring, what your roommate plans to bring, and confirm like when you can move in. Some apartment companies are strict on the move-in date, and then some will allow for early move-in. That's also something to think about when choosing a place to live. And then decide on like the move-in logistics if you need outside help, if you can manage it yourself. And then plan for parking for moving vehicles. In Oakland, it can be street parking is a bit limited, so that is something to take into account. And then these are just some basic apartment essentials. I won't run through all of them. Um, but yeah, just keep in mind that if this is the first time your student is living alone, they'll need all the kitchen stuff. Keep in mind if the place is furnished or if it's not furnished, and making a plan to get all of the needed pieces of furniture and items. Some safety tips: keep doors and windows locked at all times. It's always recommended to lock the door, even if your roommate maybe lost their key and is like, hey, can we keep the door unlocked until I get a new one? It's just safer to always keep your door locked. Don't leave valuables where they can be seen from the window. Don't let strangers inside. If you're going away for winter break, you can have the mail held at the post office. This is also a great opportunity to be friends with your neighbors. Maybe your next door neighbor is a long-term resident and they could watch your mail, keep an eye on things, and make sure everything is good while you're away. Make sure the window is secured properly. Sometimes there's like the air conditioning units that are outside, have outdoor lighting. You can install cameras like the Ring doorbell. A lot of students have a Ring doorbell, I would say. There's also like door alarms. Our office has window alarms and door alarms that we are able to provide to students. Okay, financial aid and living off campus. Students who live off campus can, in some cases, use financial aid to help cover their living expenses. Um, they can sometimes use access funding after tuition and fees to pay for off-campus housing. I would say that this is like very specific for every individual, and it just depends. So if you have specific questions on this, there is a financial and wellness department here that can help answer those questions more directly. Transportation, like I said earlier, a great perk of being a Pitt student is access to the bus. It's very convenient. It's now on your phone as a QR code. Super convenient to hop on a bus from Oakland and get to pretty much any neighborhood in Pittsburgh. Pitt also has a shuttle service that takes students all over the place and even upper campus. And then there's a partnership with CMU to also use their shuttles as well. Students get 30 minutes free on the pogo bikes, and there's a bunch of bike racks everywhere. Um, we also have bike lockers, and yes, there is parking through the city of Pittsburgh if you sign up, and you can get residential parking. I do believe you need to send them your lease or just like proof of the neighborhood that you live in because it's like zone parking. Okay, any questions?
A reminder that the Q&A is open. You should be able to type in it. Marilyn, Treya, that was so much good information.
Thank you.
I am curious, and I don't know, maybe people could type in the Q&A since the chat is closed. How many of you have a student who currently lives off campus or has a student looking, or is your student looking to live off campus in the next academic year? So are they currently searching, which they should be doing now, but the housing market in Oakland is wild. Okay, someone has a current student they're living off campus. That's fantastic. We've got searching. Okay, another searching. And we do have a question. I'll push it to answer live while another searching. So we do definitely have some people looking to search. That's their students are looking to search. Excellent. Here's a question for either of you or Trisha. For out-of-state students, is it required that off-campus leases begin during the summer when they're not in state?
It's definitely not required. I would say the most typical timeline of leases start the first week of August, usually August 1st or whenever that first Monday is, and then end at the end of July. Um, that's just the most common, I would say, but there are different like lease cycles. Some start earlier, some start later. Um, but no, there's definitely not like one required timeline, I would say.
Wonderful. We've got some other questions. We've got a question about safety. First, the Marianne says terrific information. So thank you both for that. And any suggestions for safety of a first floor apartment? So windows, fire escapes, someone living on the first floor.
I lived on the first floor for a year, so I can relate to this. I would say window alarms are a good thing to have. I never had to use them, but I just had them on my window for peace of mind. Um, Always keeping the door locked. Shreya, is there anything that you could think to add?
Yeah, I would say like if the student is interested, they could also invest on the video cams that come, which would face your doors and windows because so one would be to have a renter's insurance, like if something has been stolen, so they can at least get some reimbursement of it. And if there's a window, so in case like it doesn't usually happen, but then they have a proof of like somebody has come in. So it doesn't cost much like the video cams that you can get it on Amazon. Other things would be keep your doors locked. Like that's one thing that we've been asking students to do. And when they go out on vacations, we ask students to inform their landlord as well as the neighbors to keep a check, just in case like there has been any incidents. So things like that. We also post a lot of safety information and tips on our Instagram page, where students can access these resources. So these are a few that we recommend students to do.
Excellent. Our next question. Oh, Trisha, it does look like you're typing to this question, but I'll ask it out loud in case anyone would like to add on for other listeners. Are there any places to find a standard or what you're finding as market provisions in a lease?
Unfortunately, in our area, no, there aren't any market standards or set prices. It's just depending all on what you're looking for in a lease. There's higher end properties, there's lower end properties. It's all what you're looking for. I always suggest for students and parents to set up a budget before you go out and start looking for an apartment. What can you afford? What can each roommate afford? And also, when you're doing that, you have to include in paying your utilities, your internet, and things along that line, adding in how much do you think you're going to spend on food? My main suggestion is set up your budget before you start looking to see what everyone can spend. Because you don't want to get into a situation where you go out and rent this apartment and all of a sudden it's like, how am I going to afford this? Because when you're signing a lease with even if you go in with a bunch of students, you're signing a jointly and severally lease. So you're treated as one. So just make sure you set up a budget before you rent anything. And this is for across the board with all roommates.
Thanks, Trisha. Next question. Is it typical to charge about $50 per tenant for water, sewage, and trash? That seems like a lot for a a four-tenant apartment.
The the first thing I'll say is to just be cautious with the four tenant apartment because there is um an ordinance in Pittsburgh where no more than 3 unrelated individuals can be living together in one apartment, meaning a 3 tenant lease would be standard. Um, as the $50 per tenant per water, sewage, and trash, I don't seem that that's
I can
unheard of.
answer that. I
Yeah.
can answer that. That's, I don't agree with it, but it's becoming very, very common in leases. And it's just depending how the wording is in the lease. It's every lease that's come across my desk in, I'd say, the last 2 months have had a charge for water and sewage. Trash, I am trying to figure out if that's legal, but when you put your own trash out, that's a new one that's just come about recently. If you're putting out your own trash, I don't see how a landlord could be charging you for that.
Yeah, I also have seen some apartments charge like a flat fee per unit. Like I've seen like $200 per unit for water and sewage and such. So $50 per tenant doesn't seem completely out of the norm, I would say.
Thank you both. Our next question is a bit of a lore from our first year students, as I think we've all heard this one, but let's address it. And this is it true that most off-campus housing in South Oakland is taken by the end of October? Is that a myth that first year students have?
Um, I would say it definitely gets earlier and earlier every year, I fear. I wouldn't say it's all taken. I would say generally, Central and South Oakland, those leases do get signed the fastest. Like now, people are signing leases for those apartments. But I always think that you can always find like one-offs, and there's like roommates that fall apart and things. Like you can always find housing later. If you don't have a lease signed at the end of October, you're going to be homeless next year. That's not the case at all because there are still apartments available. But especially for like the 5 to 10 minute walks away from campus, those do get taken pretty soon, I would say. Is there anything, Shreya or Trish, that you want to add to that?
No, you answered it perfectly, Marilyn.
Thank you both. We have a follow-up to the question that Trisha answered about finding a standard or what are market provisions in a lease. The follow-up was a clarification, not so much about price, but are there any provisions in a lease, Trisha, that you have seen, because as Marilyn pointed out, you've probably seen all of the leases in Oakland, that are too onerous or are too landlord friendly?
Most leases are. In PA, unfortunately, the law goes more towards the landlord than the tenant. I am not a lawyer, but I have a lot of experience in this. I suggest read a lease very carefully. If you don't understand a clause in a lease, that's when you would reach out to me. And there's also a free attorney available to students through the Student Government Board. They won't read over your whole lease like I do, but they'll answer a certain question about provisions in a lease. Every lease is different, and I've seen stuff that shocked me that I had to do like a ton of research on. Most of the leases are standard and they go towards PA law, but leases are all over the place with every landlord. They're all different. It's just depending on the landlord. There are certain leases in Oakland that I wouldn't sign, but if you ask me to review the lease, I pinpoint everything that I think is a major red flag, or I think it possibly could be illegal in the lease. But most leases have a severability clause. If one clause is illegal, they'll strike that clause and the rest of the lease goes. Leases are just all over the place. Every landlord's different.
Trisha, I really appreciate you saying about you'll review leases. And I think this is a good time, maybe all three of you or someone can highlight, I see up on the screen where to find you, like email and phone number, but can someone highlight a little bit about, we have parents and families on the webinar. They may send some action items to their Pitt student who's searching. Can you tell them what are some things you'd like to highlight from your office that students can utilize, like the lease review?
I would say, oh, Trey, go ahead.
No, I would just ask students to go through our website. Like we have everything listed down. And we also encourage students to have take appointments with us and they can schedule meetings with us. And then we can help them through the whole procedure of finding an apartment.
We also have a
Very-
live chat too on our website. It just comes up in the bottom of the screen. So if they have any like one-off questions, we're also happy to answer that as well.
And you can always go to our website that's mentioned on this website, and under contacts, there's names. You can schedule a half-hour appointment if you would like, or just with any general questions. I'm the one who answers the phone. If a parent's worried about anything, I just want to let you know we're here for you and we will answer your calls for whatever questions you have.
That's wonderful. I did put the website so it's a clickable link right into the chat. Hopefully everyone can see it and click it. Next question, how soon should students be looking for next year housing off campus?
Now is a good time, I would say. Start thinking about roommates, a budget, thinking about where the student would like to live, which neighborhood and which area. Um, I would say a lot of for Central Oakland and South Oakland, um, the kind of rule of thumb is like before Thanksgiving, to have those apartments signed and locked down. But that being said, there are plenty of options in January and February, to sign leases as well. You will not, again, there's always apartments available, even out in the other neighborhoods like Shady Side. Those are even on the lesser of a turnaround time. Those leases don't usually get signed until like between March and April. So there's definitely apartments available continuously. But now is a good time to start thinking of roommates and budget, because those are the most important things.
Can I add something to that, please? If you're waiting for your lottery number after the first of the year, not every apartment's going to be taken. I mean, we just want to say they're saying to look sooner if the student wants to roll out of bed and come to class. They're just saying that the apartments that are closer to the university fill up faster if they don't want to walk a couple blocks. So the sooner you find something, the closer you're going to be.
This is wonderful information. The Q&A is still open. We have a question, how far out location-wise can they look at for housing? Some say 10 minutes or 15 minutes away. Is that too far?
10 to 15 minutes is definitely not too far, I would say. Some students have like a 40-minute walk to campus. But again, the bus ride is very convenient. And it's super easy to hop on a bus and get to campus. Freya, do you have things
Yeah,
to?
I would recommend like the student decides on how they would like to commute to the university because some students might drive or some students might depend on the bus. So looking for housing which is closer to the bus stop would make sense who are traveling by bus. And also, if people are thinking about the drive, like driving to the campus, then they might have to also think about parking on campus and things like that. So it would all be dependent on the students' schedule and how they're planning to travel to the university. So based on that, they can take a decision on how far they want to live.
And parking is very limited on campus. So if they're going to be parking on campus or driving to campus from a little further away, make sure they make arrangements or come in a lot earlier to find parking. Because parking is a very limited thing on the University of Pittsburgh campus.
This question is, will this PowerPoint be available after the presentation? It definitely can be. I'll ask one of my colleagues to send it to me. And if you put in a request at parents@pitt.edu, and I'll put that in the chat, just send us an email and say slides from the off-campus webinar. We will happily send the PowerPoint over to you. The next question is it advisable for a returning student, second year next year, to be off campus?
I can answer that. I mean, it's up to them. I mean, or up to the parents, because usually your co-signers on a lease, it's if the student, do you think the student's ready? Because when you're moving off campus, you are taking on a lot of responsibility, paying utilities on time, making sure they're eating, making sure they're not staying out all night. It's just depending off if you think the student is mature enough to live off campus at that time. I mean, that's a discussion you're going to have to make with the student.
Such a good answer, Trisha. You're right. It's so dependent on the student. This question is, my son is looking with 5 other boys. Is the market tougher for 6 bedrooms or easier?
Again, again, I would just caution that there is the clause in law in Pittsburgh that no more than 3 unrelated individuals can be living together in one unit. It is not legal. However, 2 3 bedroom apartments, or living in a building with multiple units, I would say the market is probably the same. Yeah.
And a lot of time when the students are renting 5 bedrooms apartments, 6 bedrooms apartments, 7 bedrooms apartments, a way the landlord gets around that is they'll only put 3 names on a lease. And students don't realize the names that aren't on the lease, they have no responsibility to that apartment. They can walk away at any time, say they don't get away with some, they don't like their roommates and they just leave. They can do that and they have no obligation to that lease term,
Or
to the lease.
paying.
Yeah.
Also, kind of something that we like to say is if the landlord is willing to break that law, what other things are they willing to do? Um, so it's just something to keep in mind if they're asking you to do some shady stuff.
And if parents have questions, they can always reach out to me.
There's a note to please make this available offline for or later viewing. Absolutely. All of our Pitt Family webinars are recorded and posted to the Student Affairs YouTube channel. And I'll put that YouTube channel link in the chat. But I promise all of the webinars, because all of my colleagues present amazing information that we want to make sure you have access to, I promise it will be there. Last call for questions. It's 12:39. Last call on questions in the Q&A, please. All right, not a question, but wonderful feedback for Shreya, Marilyn, and Trish. I just want to say thank you. This is fabulous, and you offer incredible help to parents and students. Thank you. And then Derek said, very helpful. Thank you. Thank you both that posted feedback. We love that. It's helpful to hear. I'm glad that you found the topic and the content helpful. And I'm really grateful to Marilyn, Shreya, and Trish As a reminder, they put up their contact information, but the website is there. You can always request the slides or the YouTube link, which will be available in just a few days, by emailing us at parents with an S, so plural, parents at pitt.edu. And thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday.